Done. Let's just do this update. We're going to focus on Bitcoin. We'll look at Ethereum for a second just because it's up here after Bitcoin. And this is really about Luna, but let's look at Bitcoin first, just kind of look at some things. So just to show this, I think this adds a little bit to it. Let's just keep going here. Obviously, it's 4. Mute myself. Don't want to hear myself. So we just kind of bring it to here, right? So this was kind of what I imagined already, but this is what I really wanted to see. So I was fine. First, I really didn't want it to hit here. I felt like something like this happen or we'll get more pressure downwards. I would have liked to have for us just come down and push up. So I just wanted to show that because that's my kind of issue. So we can really see here, instead of turning over somewhere here, coming down, and then building a nice foundation, pushing up, it just seems a little top heavy now. And it seems like we're pretty much messing all around here. Now we did end a day above this, but this isn't like a day time frame hull or anything. It's just a line here. And like, every line could be important, but like we also didn't bounce here. So that's why for me, it's doesn't really mean anything. But long story short, I'm not really a huge fan of where Bitcoin is. And I think we can kind of see this with a decent amount. Almost every alt, I feel like we can see this because it's just not doing anything. It's not moving anywhere. We can just look at the alts. Um, AMP might have just done something a second ago, but besides this one random thing, and maybe a couple other random ones, more or less, let's look at the big ones. Um, we can see Cardano hasn't moved much, Doge hasn't moved much, Classic hasn't moved much. After its jump, Ethereum hasn't moved much. And I think Ethereum jumped before we had the day turnover the first time, so I think it was right after the market closed that we just had that continued push up. Same thing, a lot of some weakness here. Really, what we were looking for was this up here anyway, which looks like instead of coming down, we tried to fight back up and failed again. So that was kind of interesting. So let's get to the main point. Let's talk about Luna real quick. So Luna, what can we see? We can maybe take this. I've never really looked at it this way with my averages, but we could technically, in a sense, see a break where it does start above where it is. We can see up here what the price is. So right on this date, it is 1.8643, and now we can see that we start or we open right here on this time at 1.9. So we can see that, but regardless of that, because I usually don't know how to quantify that. I mean, it is a breakthrough in a sense, but that kind of brings us up to where we are now. We can see with nice averages down here, blah, blah, blah. We can see all this good stuff, right? But to where we are now, that's more important, is up here. So what gets engaged? The 4-hour 200 is engaged up here. So, I mean, I could technically bring this up a little bit more. It doesn't really matter because we can pretty much see it on the 4-hour, but the focus is on the 4-hour, and it's on this 4-hour end, which we'll see at, we'll see in, it's easier to say this way. We'll see it at 12 Eastern, but the point is, we'll see it at 5 UTC or 1700 UTC. There we go. Let's do somehow it just feels easier. Okay. Oh, my bad. Wait, is this still going on my time? Whatever. I'm confused now. But anyway, the next 4-hour candle to me, let's just keep it simple, is I think is going to be pretty important. Regardless, it doesn't matter what time frame or where we live. So we can see some interesting things here. This is the 4 hours, so I like to see 4-hour time changes on this. I think those are the most impactful more than anything. Obviously, days and 12 hours can be impactful too as well. So some of the interesting things we can see here is huge shot up, huge shot up. So that kind of invalidates most of this. Even if this did end slightly above, but even if this did end here, we have such a huge wick up. I'd be very careful about this. It's not something I'd mess with, but we can see it pushes under, boom, boom. Like it's pretty obvious. It respects this line pretty well and pushes up pretty well off of it. So this kind of gets to our issue is now we're back under it. My fear is that we'll end under and then push down pretty hard at least. So we could create a base somewhere around here. We'll have to see some of the shorter time frames. Maybe those have caught up. Let's see. So we have a 1 hour. Let's just note the 1 hour really quick. And these will move quick. So that's the thing. Like for this, depending on when someone sees this, these 1 hours are very aggressive because the price just shot up. If we look at this, it goes from 4.2361 to 4.287. So 4.236 to 4.236 to 4.287 to 4.387. So this is moving up very fast. So for me, if anyone really cares about this and likes the other stuff I have, I would recommend just slapping the double hold on, and then you can look at these relevant time frames near it. The most important thing I believe, though, really is just a 4 hour end under here, but slightly under here. I think it's always important to remember. If there's a 4 hour end here, there is always the possibility. We'll say like this, it's a little bit easier to understand. If there's a 4 hour anywhere far enough, pretty much anyway, but anywhere like that starts here below, most likely we'll come back at least on a 4 hour and probably test all the way back up. It doesn't look like there's any reasonable resistance before this area, so I do believe this would uh, call for a retest, which could push back to the top side. That is always something to look for. So just because it's going under and it starts under doesn't mean I'm saying, hey, it's going to shoot down. I think it's within context. I think it's because if we're looking for confirmation, right, when it switches over here, it's one of the easier spots because if we even get in here, you're only risking maybe 3 to 4%, which really isn't a lot when we're especially thinking about where Luna came from, right? So it really isn't a lot for specifically for Luna right now. So want to point that out. Let's look at the two. I don't think. Let's look at the one that's there. So it looks like the next place so far would be 4.387 if we did immediately drop, which I don't think it will. And like I said, we got to be careful for this and where this ends. The closer to here, the more likely that as it pushes down, it'll do something up and then just break down. Though the other thing to note is, depending where this comes, this could push it back up. This is still what I'd be looking for re-entry is another 4 hour ending above. So like a reversal, re-entry would be a reversal, come back above on a relevant time frame. Re-entry would be really nice. And what I'd be concerned about a little bit would be us falling into here, but more so on the 1 hour, us falling under both. That would be the most concerning. And then we'd have usually what happens when you see this, we might be able to see this on a different time frame. Probably here it fell through like the 5 or the 15. Usually what it'll do is, we'll see in a second, but usually it'll do, and then like it'll end under and it'll push under. And then usually it finds relevant support and then kind of tries to push back up. So let's see what the 30 looks like. Yeah, so we can kind of see here on the 30, let's get rid of some of these doodles so far. We can see on the 30 what happened. So we have to see the other time frames too, but we see on the 30 how we started under instead of pushing up here. And it just makes sense anyway. Even if we kind of ignore this line, I really like it because it makes it easier. But even if we ignore this line, we know at this point right here, it's like we're wedged. We need to break up. So this isn't something that couldn't be seen if someone wasn't looking at the average. It just, like I said, almost every time I see these averages somewhere, it just lines up really well. So uh, what we wouldn't want to see is probably a 4 hour end on somewhere under here. It'll be interesting. Let me see when we'll have that 4 hour change. So one thing that is pretty nice, so some interesting things about this actually a little bit so far is let's just kind of assume it's not going to change its path too much. So the next actual 4 hour change is going to be right here, interestingly enough. So I think this actually so far, we'll see what's on the short time frames. I wouldn't be as worried about it right now. I don't like where Bitcoin is, and I'm not a huge fan where this is either. But I still have a feeling it could sit here for a little bit because we're not going to see our 4 hour change until this line hits. And if we do see a 4 hour change above this line, we're going to have a 4 hour change that's really close to this line in a place where it looks really wedged and really great to just push back up, or at least fight back up. And at the same time, we'll see that 4 hour change um, back above this line. It's one second. Let me move it. I know it's supposed to be here, but it's um, it's just confusing. There we go. And then we'll just put this at the current level. There we go. It's weird when I can't see like the previous date on it also. Um, there we go. Okay. So this is the old 4 hour. This is where the new 4 hour currently is. So that's how I'd feel about this where it is right now. It looks much worse. Uh, Long story short, the 4 hour change is where this is important. So if I was in this, I wouldn't be in it. And I just wait for the 4 hour change. It could bounce and push up here, but even then, it's pretty clear to see that this is an important area. just from the way that it's acting around here. We have a huge wick down, pretty nice doji. Well, it's kind of like a doji. There's so much wick on both sides. It feels like it. Um, and this really hasn't pushed through anything. So, but I'd still only really want to see this coming back up. But it looks like it, could have a sharp rise back up and maybe, find some resistance up there. But still, the point is it would be a lot better. So switching over to here, let's take a look real quick. What averages do we have? So we can see kind of the same thing. We want to be careful whenever we turn in and we fall through. Now we're ranging in between. Boom, up. See, if we fall to relevant support right here, see? And then from there, we bounce up. We hit right there, bounce down, try to push up. See how we end under? A little bit sketchy. Falls to relevant support. Boom, boom. Really sketchy. And we'll have to see what the 5 minute looks like also as well to get a little bit better idea. But we can see how this is kind of playing. The 5 minute most likely plays with this pretty well. I've actually I'm interested to see what the 5 minute looks like. We should see something like through here or whatever, but I'd be interested because um, this isn't surprising for a short spot because what do we want to see like pretty much every time with this? We want to see something that on the relevant time frame that can start above. So it makes sense that we aren't at the top for a short. Like this would be the short, this would be a short, this would be a short, but we didn't reach it here. We didn't reach it here. So it makes sense that we would still possibly have people that wouldn't want to sell it down yet just because of that, or wouldn't want to take profits yet because it hasn't hit a target. So let's check what the 5 minute is and let's kind of see what this. So it's going through quite a bit of it. And of course, like the one thing I do I guess we can do this. Like, it's just really hard to do in post because I'd have to go back and I'd have to replay a lot of this stuff to see it in real time because these things move pretty quick to the point where, I like line out where the averages are and look at it short term. But let's try to see. Okay, so let's take the inflection points. So this was a big inflection point here. This was a big inflection point. So here we hit the bottom. Here we almost hit the top. So I'm going to want to see what happens if we see anything at these areas. Probably not too much. It is just a 5. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Very wild on the 5. Nothing really too specific. Let's check. So let's just kind of follow this. We do fall under. We fall under. Relevant support, the only thing nearby. Push, push down, push down. And this is one also like key thing. Things don't always have this is why I always like again and again and again point out relevant support and then it usually tries to test back. It's always important. It's not like, oh, it's under something. We're literally going down to 0. That's never how it is. It's just saying that there's generally extra pressure, you know, or a decent amount of extra pressure. But depending on excuse me, but that's why price and action is always important. Let me see. I mean, there's some pretty decent things here. It's a little bit upsetting that it failed. I wonder what it did here because some of these things look a little bit decent. So just kind of looking at this a little bit better. I don't hate this spot. I actually like this quite a bit, and I think we can see the fighting here as a decent representation of that. Um, excuse me, in a sense. I mean, it works well in between these lines, but we can also see like the hesitancy. This looks like a decent entry. Um, this looks like a decent entry. I wouldn't have gotten in here. I would have possibly have gotten in here if I was messing with it. The biggest thing I didn't like about all of this, though, actually, this is 9. Oh, it's okay. So this is late at night. Yeah, what I didn't like about this is right about here or whatever, but somewhere back here, right here, we had our day change, and this is when I wanted to see Bitcoin come down to support. So Bitcoin's just been pushing up. So it's not really that surprising to me that a lot of alts haven't been able to get extra strength because just to kind of quickly show again, Bitcoin's bounce spot. Let's see, let's do it this way. Yes, we have both up. Bitcoin's bounce spot is all the way down here. So we just kind of keep getting farther and farther and farther. So like the support is now 5% down. So anything's going to have to withhold a 5% drop to then like get strong support. I'm not saying it can on its own, but like from Bitcoin to a place that's safe, this is the safe area, which is kind of getting less and less safe because coming back onto here brings us back under this. I still think this can break above, but usually in this situation, it's either better to see a day fail to end around here and then try to take a bullish position, or to see a bounce here and then use this as a bullish entry, which makes it a lot worse because you don't want people to wait for it to come back up. That kind of just increases the strength of this area. Excuse me. So, so yeah, we can just kind of see some of these. It's a little interesting. We got our 4 hour. Yeah, no price, nice price action here. But I mean, it's pretty standard stuff from it. Sadly, like there's no entry here. There's no entry here either because we don't come back down. We don't come back down. Um, so I'm not, whoops. So I'm not too surprised that this kind of failed at the end of the day also from this in the 5 minute. Up here, I mean, it's like it is what it is. But this is how I kind of feel about most of Luna right now in a sense, and a lot of other ones where they just want a decent signal and they don't have a signal. So it's just people trading without people actually trading that have capital that really believe it's going to go somewhere, right? So we can see it's stuck in here, come under. So this looks okay. But anyway, I just kind of want to go through a little bit. Nothing really changes. And as we can see here, as I said before, nothing here is done. The only real point about this video is that there is a potential for the Bears to fight and win this um, as opposed to any other time. The thing is we overuse this, boom, then push up. This is great, great, great. But as a bear, you're you have this to fight against. So you really have to wait for the failure. So I don't know how to explain it any better, but this is finally the time for anyone that's a bear that wants to short this and people that want to just keep their profits to pay attention to see what happens, especially on this 4 hour change. Um, we can already see like from before how important this area was throughout this whole time. So anyway, I know it's a little bit long. As always, I just the main gist of it is in the beginning. Think everyone probably was able to understand it. This is no SOS for Luna. This is just it's now time to pay attention very closely. Pay attention because if we do, they do want to push it down from here, we might have a decent way down with some volatility and some bumps, but there is a decent chance for it, as we've seen with I don't remember what time frame was it looking at the 30. Yeah, with the 30. So there's a decent chance with the 30. So what the Bears are going to have to do is they're going to have to one. This is so annoying. Whatever. They're going to have to one limit it most likely in this range. And then what they're going to need to do, which is also somewhat hard, but it's the closest chance they have, they're going to need it to be under here at least. So this is like the best area for them to get to. If we can kind of break here and mess and around this, I mean, there's there's certain signs that we could look for to see that it's possible that they can't push it down there anymore. But I would like it makes zero sense not to look at this for a split second. Like look, it doesn't make sense not to look at this for the last 5 minutes before the next 4 hour change. That's literally all that needs to be done here. The in between doesn't matter. All this other stuff doesn't matter. To me, that's not how I usually look at things. It's just the relevant time frame. So 4 hour change, just see. I think it could have a decent chance to push back up. I'm not a huge, well, I'd say in this perspective, if we do end above, I could see a decent chance of it pushing back up to here. It's still a great entry spot, in my opinion, but I would be somewhat cautious about thinking it would just shoot up, up, up. But it's definitely possible. You never know. I mean, for me, it's all about good entry points as opposed to anything else. So I just kind of wanted to go through that, some of these thought processes on it. Sorry, it's a little tough because going through the replay and all the other stuff takes a lot of extra time and other things. So, um, but yeah, the 4 hour thing's going to be pretty important for Luna. It's done pretty well so far, but could have quite a bit of a pullback depending. So we'll have to see. Anyway, take care, y'all.